let's talk about the Beorning class. Now, I actually didn't include the Beorning class in my latest top 5 classes that I recommend in LOTRO video, which a lot of you did comment about. I had a lot of comments that were specifically saying that it's a really easy class to kind of pick up and just wanted more answers as to why I didn't include it. And truthfully, the only reason why I didn't include it is because I honestly haven't played the Beorning that much. I've only played it for like about 3 years or so. It was a semi-newer class when I tried it out, so a lot of my opinions on it was really reflecting on how it first was when it came out, and it's drastically changed since then. So I set myself out on a goal to try the Beorning class again, and this video will focus on my honest reviews of levels 1 through 20. In this video, I did choose a Beorning that focused on the blue line tree, so I definitely want to make sure that that's clear, that I didn't really linger into the red or yellow phases either. I just specifically stuck to blue line. So without further ado, I'm going to explain more about the overall basics of the Beorning class, what it is, what stats you really want to look into, and then furthermore, I'm just going to give my honest opinion of how the leveling was for the early low level phases. Beornings are bears, basically. You can be a human, but you can also morph into a bear. So you're essentially like a shapeshifter in a way. It's really cool because you can actually like morph like mid-battle, which is very unique, as sometimes with stances and stuff of other classes, like you have to commit to them and then you can't really like switch them when you're in combat. But Beorning is actually really unique because you can more or less just morph at any time. The only thing that you really have to pay attention to is Wrath. Now this is actually different from any other character in Lord of the Rings Online. So what Wrath is essentially almost like a different use of the power bar. So every character has a power bar. It's right under your morale bar, your health. So you'll see a blue line, but here in Beornings it's going to be red, and you actually have to build this up. With power, it's normally maxed out, and then every time that you use a skill, it'll go down over time. But with Wrath, you actually can build up your like stamina. We'll kind of think of it like that. So every time that you click on a skill in man form, you're actually building up the Wrath, which you mostly utilize as a bear when you morph into the bear, and then you use some of those skills. Those mostly rely on Wrath. So it's really cool because not only the whole system is different, and honestly I really like the build up of having to be in like human form, just doing a couple of hits here or there, but then you can do amazing hits, great damage in your bear form, especially with the blue line. It's very geared towards being in the bear form and really making those skills so good. So the Beorning class actually came out in 2014, and another unique thing about it is that you have to be the Beorning race. It actually was paired up as a class and a race together. So in order to do the Beorning class, you have to choose Beorning race. You can't be like a man and then choose the Beorning class. It doesn't work like that. They're kind of like an equal pair of race and class. But it originally came out in 2014. Back when the class came out, I did check it out and I did try it. And one of the things I didn't like about it was that you could easily build up Wrath. Like you had to build up your Wrath and all of that in order to morph into the bear form in general. And it really sucked because you almost had like all this Wrath. You would morph into bear form, but your enemies would already be down because just in the human form, like you do really great damage. So essentially it almost took out the need of even having to do bear form unless you were trying to like take out a really big boss or something like in raids and such. But then what also sucked about it is that you would actually lose your Wrath quite rapidly when you weren't in combat. They've completely changed that now, so you actually have your Wrath no matter what. Even if you're not in combat, it'll still remain the same. And then there's actually skills that really help you like build up your Wrath quicker, which was really nice, and that could go towards more of my blue line, but I did feel like some of those were pretty basic. So like I mentioned, I specifically stuck with the blue line for Beorning, which essentially I figured would really help with damage and bear form. So like I would have really great skills when I morphed into a bear. However, I actually didn't find myself morphing too much because my damage, my DPS was amazing. Even with a human, it was insane. Like, I felt really powerful no matter what form I was in. The only time I felt like I really morphed a lot was when I had a lot of enemies, and there was actually better AoE skills that I had as a bear in comparison to human form that really helped with like various mobs that I had circling around me. So I probably would actually recommend me to go more redline, because I was in like human form more, and I did focus a lot of like heavy hitting skills. Like DPS was like super important. So I definitely think that that would just work better for me for soloing. So if that's something that you're mostly gonna do is more soloing, then I definitely would probably lean a little more towards red line, but honestly blue line was fantastic. I totally recommend it for everyone. I felt very overpowered in comparison to any class in Lord of the Rings I've played. So now to kind of focus on what stats you really want to look into for Beorning, the most important stat you're going to look into is might. And then the second most important is going to be vitality. Might is actually something that's very common in heavy armored classes, so it increases your physical damage, and it can cause greater damage with your weapon. Vitality increases your morale, and I honestly think that every single class has this as like their second most important stat to focus on, so nothing really crazy there, and also can help a little bit with resistance rating. So it's essentially like a win-win. You get greater physical damage, more health. Sounds fantastic. Great stats to work on, so just try to keep those in mind when you're looking at different traits or skills within your class line or anything along those sorts. You really want to focus on might and vitality. In terms of virtues that you really want to stick to, you definitely want to use zeal, loyalty, fidelity, mercy has a little bit, and charity. So those are the overall like virtues I would really highly recommend that you utilize and buff up as you go on through your gameplay. So this is just a look as to what class points I actually put in my class traits. So as you can see, some of it I'm a little on edge about still, like especially with Hardened Heart. I am someone who likes to play safe rather than sorry. I haven't really used this too much, but it definitely helps with healing, and now I boosted it to also give me a lot of wrath over time as well. So I always like to have something just in case, like if I'm really in a tough situation, I like to have really good heals or really good stats and buffs that are going to help me just to get my character back to a decent place to be in terms of morale and wrath for this Beorning. So definitely you don't have to do this, but that's just kind of how I am as a player. I really like to play safe rather than sorry. Opposing Presence I actually used, and it was a really great AoE skill that I used a lot in my human form, so that's kind of why I increased it, because I wanted it to have a little bit more damage in the AoE side of it. And then there's also Vitality increase, which I would highly recommend that you max out. I just didn't, because I just don't have enough points, and I didn't feel it was extremely necessary as some of the other skills I wanted to put points in. However, highly recommend. This is super critical to max out, and I definitely, that's on my list of things I'm going to put my points in next once I level up some more. Then we'll go down here to Vigilant Roar. I actually didn't really use this too much. It was more of like a fear skill, and then there was just a lot of great bonuses that came with it, so that's kind of why I added at least one skill point to it, just to see how great it would be just with a little bit of buff. But it's something I didn't really use that much anyway throughout my time, so I just gave it the 1 point. But and Harm's Way, which we don't even have like the sacrifice skill yet or anything along those lines that I'm aware. I haven't found anything like it, so I didn't see the point of even needing to get this yet. But let me know in the comments if you disagree or if I'm just completely blind, but I saw nothing for it. I thought this would be more like group content based stuff anyway, especially with like the additional threat boost to it, but let me know in the comments if I just completely mistaken it, but I guarantee you this just was not important at all. Weakening Blow. Now I actually recommend that you get this to rank 4 of 5. All online, same thing. I had to do in Harm's Way before, so I just didn't see the point of necessarily needing this at the moment, but it is something that I do want to look into getting at some point. And then we also have Rending Blows, which is just another skill, and personally whenever I see on the trees that there's actually an additional skill that I need to unlock, I will typically put a lot of points into getting those skills just because I want a whole variety of different types of skills. What was really important about this skill, however, was that you could actually interrupt some of like those longer induction periods of your enemy's skills, and I really didn't have any of those for bear form until I hit level 20, and of course when I hit level 20 this was the skill I got, so now I have 2, so hey, better safe than sorry, like I mentioned. And then of course I put a point into increasing my tactical mitigation, which is always important to put a little bit of points into. And honestly, you don't even get many of like the tactical skills until I think it was like level 12 when I started getting them, and they're mostly in bear form. So Assertive Roar, which I didn't really see the point of, it is something I'm kind of leaning towards just because you get more morale, but it's more for just tanking and stuff along those lines, which you don't really need to do in soloing. And then there's Armor Crush, which is just like a better skill for the previous one, the Rending Blows. So that's something I would look into as well. I mean, there's great buffs and boosts to it. So just kind of keep it in mind. I'm a little on edge about it still though, because incoming damage, but what do I know? So I just kind of wanted to show you a little more about what I've put some of my skills to, and this is just how I stacked it all together. If you want to do something a little different, it's totally up to you, but that just kind of gives you a brief overview of all of the skills that you'll have available to you at level 20 with only 19 points to spend. So just to wrap up, overall my experience with the Beorning and the blue line from levels 1 through 20 so far has been so cool, man. Like, there's so much in the footage that you've seen that really just shows how great the DPS is and how many freaking mobs you can have on you. Like, I felt like I never had to heal. I think I hit my heal like 3 times, and it's insane that you even have a heal. You literally have like almost everything. There's range skills, there's really great DPS, there's even a heal in case you really need some backup. Like, it's just so overpowering for a class. I'm not gonna lie, like, I've been sleeping on this class. So this is definitely a class that if you're really like looking for the undefeated title of not dying all the way up until level 20, this gave me no issues whatsoever. Like, I barely used my heal, like I said. Either way, if we were going on like a tier list, it's definitely like an A rank for sure. This is so well rounded. The levels flew by. I had such a blast playing this class, so I definitely recommend that you play this. If you do want more class suggestions though, I do have a video about my top 5 classes, which it's probably outdated now because Beorning is definitely up in my top 5, but I don't know which one to take out of the top 5. It's so difficult. But I highly recommend you check out that video, and if you need more tips on Lord of the Rings Online, I do have a playlist linked down below for you as well. So until next time, stay weird, weirdos.